All right, so let's talk about one of the wildest, most consistent patterns you'll find anywhere in the Bible. It's this idea that God's biggest, most world-changing projects are always, and I mean always, built using the most unlikely people you could possibly imagine. So yeah, let's get into it. You know the image, right? When we think about heroes from the Bible, our minds jump to these perfect, holy-looking figures. You've seen the paintings. They look like stained glass saints, like they were just born ready. But when you actually crack open the book, the real story is so much messier and honestly so much more hopeful. And this is really the whole point. The popular myth is that God put together this spiritual dream team, right? The A-team. But the reality we see in the text, oh, it's so much better. It's the story of a messy, unqualified, and deeply, deeply human group of people, chosen specifically to prove that real power works through our weaknesses, not in spite of them. To really get this pattern, we have to go way, way back, all the way to the very beginning, the foundation of the nation of Israel. And this whole thing doesn't kick off in some glorious palace. Nope. It starts with some serious family drama and a whole lot of heartbreak. Think about this. The 12 tribes of Israel, the entire nation. It's all born out of a bitter rivalry between two sisters. And it's specifically rooted in the pain of Leah, the wife her husband, Jacob, flat out did not want. God literally builds his chosen nation on the desperate prayers of a woman who felt completely overlooked by the world. And here's where it gets really fascinating. Just look at the names she gives her first four sons. It's like a map of her heart, you know? She starts with names that mean God sees my misery, and God hears that I am unloved. And she moves all the way to Judah, which means this time I will praise the Lord. It's this incredibly raw, honest journey from total rejection to pure worship. And that's the foundation of everything. Okay, so let's jump forward in time. We're talking hundreds of years later, and what do we find? The exact same dynamic. Jesus is picking the 12 guys who are going to be the foundation of the entire church. And let me tell you, this was not some hand-picked team of the best and brightest. Let's just take his number one guy, Simon. Jesus gives him this new name, Cephas, or Peter, which means rock. But, I mean, come on. For most of the story, Peter is anything but a rock. He's impulsive, he's emotional. One minute he's sinking in the water because he's terrified. The next he's swearing he'll never leave. And that's the whole point, isn't it? The story isn't about how solid Peter is. It's about the crazy grace of the one who picked him anyway. And it gets even crazier. So Jesus calls this guy Simon, the zealot. Zealots were basically revolutionaries who wanted to violently kick Rome out. Then, in the same small group, he puts Matthew, a tax collector, a guy who worked for the Roman government. To a zealot, a tax collector wasn't just on the other team, he was a traitor who deserved to die. So what does Jesus do? He sticks them on the same team and tells them, hey, you guys have to love each other. I mean, just the fact that this group could even exist was a miracle in itself. It was proof that following him meant getting over every political or ideological line you could possibly draw. All right, but if you want the most extreme, the most mind-blowing example of this entire pattern, we have to talk about the guy who wrote a massive chunk of the New Testament, the Apostle Paul. I mean, this guy literally started his career as a professional Christian hunter. He was there, holding the coats, nodding in approval, while the first Christian martyr, Stephen, was stoned to death. And then, bam, this blinding light on the road to Damascus. The next thing you know, the same man is sitting in a prison cell writing the very words that basically sum up this whole idea: my strength is made perfect in weakness. He went from being the church's number one enemy to its greatest architect. It's unbelievable. Okay, for our last example, we're going to a book that's, well, it's pretty unique. It's a story where God's name is never even mentioned, not once. But you can feel his fingerprints all over every single page. Yeah, we're talking about the book of Esther, the ultimate story of an invisible hand moving all the pieces. So the scene is set for an absolute disaster. The bad guy, Haman, has gotten the king to sign off on a plan to wipe out the entire Jewish population. And he's so smug about it, he builds this huge 75-foot-tall gallows just to hang one guy, his personal rival, Mordecai. I mean, from his perspective, the plan is perfect. Nothing can go wrong. And then everything changes. But it's not some big, flashy miracle. There's no earthquake, no angel shows up. It's just a sleepless night. That's it. On that one specific night, the king, the most powerful man on earth, just can't get to sleep. And this totally normal, everyday thing, it becomes the hinge that the rest of history swings on. And this whole thing introduces us to this incredible Hebrew idea that defines the story, vin hafoko. It pretty much means, and the opposite happened. It's this theme you see again and again, where the weapon that the enemy forges to destroy someone else ends up being the very thing that destroys him. And that is exactly what goes down. The whole story just flips on its head. Haman ends up getting executed on the very gallows he so proudly built for Mordecai. The weapon boomerangs. The trap catches the trapper. Classic Venahafoku. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together for a second. We've got an unloved wife starting a nation, a hot-headed fisherman, a former terrorist turned apostle, and a king who can't sleep. When you line all these stories up, this powerful blueprint just snaps into focus. So what's the takeaway from all this? What's the pattern telling us? Well, first, it's pretty clear that God doesn't seem to care much about our resumes. It's not about calling the qualified people. It's about qualifying the people he calls. Second, nobody's a finished product. We're all works in progress, right? The guy who denies Jesus becomes the rock. The persecutor becomes the greatest missionary. And finally, and this is really the heart of it, the power in these stories is never about human strength or talent. It's about a kind of grace that's tailor-made to work best in our weakest spots. Look, from start to finish, this whole story isn't about perfect people in stained glass windows. It's about real, messy, redeemed people. It's all built on this one big idea, that the most powerful force out there is a grace that can work through literally anyone who's just willing. So the real question this leaves us with isn't about them way back when. It's about us right now. Seeing this pattern, what door does that open up in your life?